Hey everyone, welcome to the Safe and Sound podcast. We used to be known as Welcome to the Scene, but we've decided to switch it up a little bit. We're going to focus the podcast on the intersectionality between music and mental health. Still the same great musical guests, but we're going to expand it to therapists and other mental health professionals. This is the very first episode of Safe and Sound, and my guest is former bassist and founding member of Coalesce and the Casket Lottery, Stacy Hilt. Stacy was kind enough to give an overview of his career, but more importantly, a look into his own struggles with being diagnosed with Bipolar II late in life, his own anxieties as a parent, and how music has both positively and at some points negatively impacted his mental health and physical well-being. This is a very open and candid look at a musician's life and mental health, so I hold it with great reverence. So, let's get to the podcast and listen to the interview. Well, welcome to the podcast, Safe and Sound. You are the initial kind of switchover, so I really appreciate you coming on. You and I've been going back and forth for a while, so I kind of apologize. I kind of like fell off the face of the earth for a little bit.
It happens, man. I understand 100%.
Yeah, I would just so that everybody knows, Stacy and I were texting. And I'm talking to a non-audience that's here right now. But he said, I asked if we could move the podcast back, and he said that he was out to dinner with his brother. So I want to know, what was for dinner?
We had pizza at a local pizza parlor called Minsky's.
Nice.
So it's just a classic pepperoni.
Nice.
So,
is that a good place?
Yeah, it's a great place. It's like a staple here in Kansas City, Missouri. It's one of the original kind of franchise style pizza places that popped up in Kansas City.
I love that you called it a pizza parlor, simply because I grew up in New Jersey on the East Coast, and so that is language that I am familiar with for a long time. So, Stacy, did you grow up in Missouri? Like, where did you grow up?
I grew up on the Kansas side. It's really confusing because there's Kansas and then there's Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, so right.
So I grew up on the Kansas side of Kansas City, not the Kansas City, Missouri. I lived on the Kansas City, Missouri side since my son was born like 12 years ago.
Okay.
We moved here for the school districts and for the better schooling system here on the Missouri side. So
yeah, yep. Nice. I mean, so you were okay. Now you're fucking me up. Kansas City. Kansas City. I'm trying to. Yeah. Okay.
So we butt right after each other, so it's universal. So if you think Kansas City, they know what you mean. We're right on the border of one another.
Right. So. Something about barbecue. I don't know.
Both Kansas City and Missouri, Kansas City have great barbecue.
So just tell me a little bit about just kind of like tell me about your relationship with your mother. I'm just kidding. We'll trace this all the way back.
I don't think you have enough time.
My goal is to bring this into a real therapy session this time. No, I would never do that. But tell me a little bit about your family, kind of growing up, if that's an okay subject to talk about. And
I guess we would be considered like a lower middle class family. Mm-hmm. I started doing construction work at 14 years old.
Wow.
Like as soon as I'd get out of school, I would go scrap houses for a local drywall company. So I'd go clean houses and stuff like that. And then that eventually turned into like doing what they call like finish work, where I'd fill nail holes and stuff like that. And then eventually I just got into retail out of high school. But my family was pretty low income.
Okay.
So, I mean, we had, free lunches through the school and the whole 9 yards and stuff like that. So, we all grew up here in Kansas City, Missouri. My mom is originally from Arizona.
Okay.
She was born in Arizona, and my grandpa was a Native American, and he moved to Kansas City from Arizona right after they had both of his kids, my mom and my uncle.
Okay.
So,
cool.
Yep.
Did you have any siblings growing up?
I have two brothers, like two blood brothers, and then I have a sister and a stepbrother.
Okay. So kind of a blended
family. Yeah.
Blended family. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, when you were growing up, you described yourself as like lower middle class. Like, were you aware of that growing up? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, on a daily basis. Yeah, I was. I reckon with it in weird ways. Like I said, I had worked from a very young age, and I a lot of times had to buy my own things.
Mhm.
So like I would save up and buy stuff for myself, and then yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So it
I
was
was very
like a
well.
what you were very aware of, but
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like seeing my family struggle, and then since my stepdad didn't have a formal education or anything like that, he worked construction too, and that's kind of what got me into it. Is my dad, my stepdad. So he was taken advantage of because he didn't have schooling, and a lot of
Mm,
his work was kind of under the table anyway. So
yeah.
like whoever was contracting the jobs decided not to pay him that week, he would just not get paid that
Oh
week.
my God.
So like it was stuff like that, like where I would just come home on Friday where we were expecting a paycheck and not have one, and then we were scraping together for like the next week or two until the guy finally decided he was ready to pay us, type thing. So yeah, yeah, I
Was
was aware.
that, yeah. I mean, that seems like a lot of survival, just kind of
Yeah, and
scarcity.
a lot of that is carried over to me as an adult now. Like
Yeah.
even today, like I my job pays well, and you know I'm doing okay, and I'm doing way better than you know my parents did at their age when they had me. So, but every time I do anything, the first thing in my head is always, am I spending this stupidly? Can I get a
Mm,
better deal somewhere? You know,
yeah.
where can I stretch my dollar the furthest? You know, I'm
Yeah.
always like thinking that way.
Yeah. Was that, I
So
think we would call that more of like a scarcity mindset, right?
yeah,
Like, you
for
know,
sure.
yeah. I mean, having secure like money, income
Yeah.
security is pretty. I mean, you get to. I'm sure now you get to provide that for your own kids. So
I, but I still like, even if I do things for myself, even now, I still feel guilt. Like if I buy something for myself or I do something myself, I immediately feel guilt like I had done something wrong by taking care of
huh.
myself. Yeah, I
Yeah,
struggle with
interesting.
that quite a bit still. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what that I'm laughing because I'm like, how does that even work into like buying music equipment?
That was a necessity, you know, with music. My dad played guitar when he was a teenager, but you know, once he hit his 20s and I came along, he pretty much just gave up on that dream. He still played, he still had a guitar laying around at all times and would
Yeah.
play, but his dream of ever doing anything more than just picking it up and like diddling on it or whatever, you know, that was as far as his dream was going to go. So he
Yeah.
got to live vicariously through me because when I started playing when I was about 15.
Okay.
So and I wanted to be a drummer, but my dad said that that instrument was far too loud.
In the house.
So
Yeah.
he refused to buy me a drum set. Like I begged him for like a year and a half, and he said no. And then I went over to my friend's house, Nathan Denson, and he had a guitar laying around, an acoustic, and he showed me a Metallica song, and I was just like, I think I want to play guitar. So I went and told my dad I want to play guitar. And the next afternoon I show up and there's a brand new acoustic guitar sitting in my bedroom at my dad's house. And he
That's
bought me a
awesome.
guitar because he's like, oh, guitar is my language. This
Yeah.
drum stuff, I don't know about that. So he
Yeah.
bought a guitar and that's how it started.
Nice. So like, did okay, do you remember what that first acoustic guitar
Yes,
was?
it was an Epiphone.
Nice.
I guess it's like the spin-off of Gibson, I think it was.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
an Epiphone, big old 6 inch thick hollow body, you know, traditional looking
Yeah.
guitar. Yeah.
How did it sound?
For like it was like $120 guitar, so it
Yeah.
sounds like it sounds. But I mean, my dad, like, he had it all set up. He probably spent another $150 getting that thing set up, do tuning keys and all that stuff
Yeah,
on
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
So instead of just buying the $300 guitar, we bought the $110 one to get me started. And once he realized that I was going to stick with it, he had it like tuned up.
Yeah.
And then my next guitar was an Epiphone Stratocaster copy. So that was my
Strata
next guitar.
copy.
Yeah, it
Like
looked
I know
exact.
like yeah.
It looked like a Stratocaster body, but it kind of had a Gibson Explorer headstock on it. So
Interesting.
it had that weird swoosh looking headstock that you see the Explorers
Super
have on it.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really weird, but it had that headstock on there, and I remember getting that was my first electric guitar, and it came with a little 9 inch speaker that if you turn it up past three, it would sound like it was gonna blow. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I started learning Alice in Chains songs out of tablature books. I don't know how to read music.
Me
It's
either.
all by ear.
Yeah, me
So
too.
like
Yeah.
once I learned a couple books of Alice in Chains songs, I decided that's how I was going to approach writing music, and I just started writing music that sounded like grunge era, Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I mean, at some point, I'm actually just kind of curious, like, just kind of going back to the scarcity mindset. When you got something that you knew that was like super expensive, like, or like your parents had paid much more for, was in your head, was that like, did you feel guilty for that?
I mean, I don't know if I felt guilty for that, but it's getting a little, I don't know. I'm trying to how to say this without making my parents sound like horrible human beings. It was always the fear that I would come home one day and they will have pawned whatever it was
Gotcha.
that I had.
Yeah.
And that happened on several occasions. And that's
Yeah.
why, like, I lived with my mom, and
Mhm.
my dad had split custody where I'd see him every other weekend. So I got to the point as I was growing up, that anything I had of value, I'd leave at my dad's house.
Okay.
So if I
Yeah.
had anything of value, I would only be able to have access to it like 2 days a month.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was so, like, all my systems and stuff like that, I had to leave there. Like, all my guitars I left there and stuff like that, because I knew that I wouldn't have to worry about coming home one day and have them be gone.
Yeah. It's
So
it's it's really funny because the reason my voice, I'm so like dialed in on my own voice now when I'm talking, because I listen back to these conversations. And I'm like, oh, why did I say like or so much there? But I guess I'm trying to think. I just completely lost my. Oh yes, this is it. It's funny whenever I talk to teenagers and like young adults and they start talking about their parents. There's always this kind of like feeling that if they talk or they criticize their parents,
uh-huh.
they like clam up,
Yeah,
right? And like, oh, I don't want to make them seem bad. I was like, I don't think that they're bad. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah,
okay
yeah,
that your parents, it's a both and, right?
yeah,
Like your parents can be great human beings and do some pretty crappy stuff too.
yeah.
Like, because we're flawed people. But I just find it interesting because like I think we all have that inclination because
And I'm almost 50, and I still almost clammed up there when I was starting
yeah,
to talk about it.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
no, I understand. Yeah,
It is what it is, right? Like, and as parents too, like I say this like jokingly, but I mean it. Like I'm fully aware that my kid is gonna go into therapy one day and be like, my dad
we
fucked this up. Yeah.
constantly, like,
Yeah.
uh, I've made it a goal to do all the things my parents did not do for me, and try
Yeah.
not to repeat the mistakes, trying to learn from their mistakes.
Yeah.
But I think by concentrating on that so hard, that I've made a lot more mistakes, because I'm more of like a helicopter parent. Like, it's only been in the last 2 years that I've been able to back off of that,
Yeah.
just because, like, I know what I did to my body and all the crazy stuff I did as a child, like all my injuries, and it's just like I'm scared to death for my son to have those injuries. And
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like when I was 10 years old, I fractured my skull, and I literally died in the operating room when I was 10 years old, and they brought me
Yeah.
back, and it's caused major, like, I have partial hearing loss in my left ear and stuff like that too, and just that head injury like stayed with me, and that was ingrained in my head that if I had a head injury like that again, that it would probably take me out. So, like, as a like growing up, I've always fear of head injury and all this stuff like
Right.
that,
Right.
and it's probably not warranted, but I think it's like my mom being super overprotective, and by saying what she did, she put it in my head that I got to watch out for my brain at all times and all this stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, just stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's really interesting because even with my wife and stuff like that, with myself having had a history of mental health issues, you're hyper vigilant, like, or at least I can be hyper vigilant about my kids, and they're like 6,
yeah,
and like,
yeah,
and I think that we take that process of like our own sort of like traumas, so to speak,
hmm,
and like obviously want to insulate our kids from that, but we come from a different perspective. And like I have to constantly remind myself that like his reality is not my reality. You know what I
yeah,
mean? In terms of like what's happened, and it makes parenting. I become way more hyper aware
yeah.
of myself, and
And I do. I'm constantly like that. My wife constantly steps in and is like, "You need to tone it down a little bit, dial that back just a little bit there." And I was like, "You're getting pretty intense about this," and it's just like, it's just my upbringing. I mean, like I said, I'm almost 50.
Yeah.
When I was growing up as a kid, mental illness wasn't talked about.
Sure.
Like if I had mentally ill family members, then I've had several suicides in my family and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that due to mental health, and so for us, it was just like it's just a growing pain, just ignore it type of thing. So when I
Yeah.
had mental health issues as a kid, it was just like, oh no, you're going through a growth spurt. Oh no, you're just hitting, puberty. You're just doing
Yeah.
this instead of having it. I wasn't diagnosed with bipolar disorder until I was almost 30.
Okay, time out. Little psychoeducation on bipolar disorder. This is by no means an exhaustive definition, however, so please don't use this as a marker for diagnosis fully. Bipolar I disorder is defined by cycles of depression and mania, while bipolar II is defined by depressive episodes lasting up to 2 weeks and what's known as hypomania. Manic episodes are different than hypomania. Mania typically lasts up to a week and may or may not include hallucinations and delusions. Hypomania, on the other hand, is shorter and oftentimes less severe in its symptoms. But both mania and hypomania have some of the same symptoms, such as increased energy, lack of sleep, risky behavior like shopping sprees, bad financial decisions, risky sexual behavior, and one that is probably important to mention are periods of increased creativity. People with bipolar II, however, are able to function more than people with bipolar I. In fact, it's probably important to note that the increase in creativity can seem like an advantage to musicians' creativity, which we kind of get into here. Okay, back to the conversation.
And that was because my wife says you really need to see somebody, because I was struggling so hard with it. And then I finally saw someone that was like, this is what it is. And I was like, oh, that's all it is. And once they put a name and kind of a face to it, it was easier for me to kind of cope with. But
Yeah,
up until that point, it was a struggle.
that's super interesting because Jake Schneider, who I was just talking about, I know, do you know Minus the Bear?
Sharks Keep Moving, minus where, yeah. I've known Jake for a while, yeah.
Yeah, and he mentioned his diagnosis of bipolar and how much later he had gotten that as well. And it, like, trying to track it, how it just kind of pops up later in life. Like I myself have obsessive compulsive disorder. I was probably diagnosed with that when I was about 14 years old. And it was kind of the same thing. Like, even in 1998, like Prozac had just came on the market and people were like, oh, that's the, depression drug.
It's a wonder drug. It's just going to fix everything.
Right. Yeah. Or not even that. It was just kind of like, you're screwed up if you're on Prozac.
Yeah,
exactly. You know what I mean? Like,
there's a stigma that goes with it.
Yeah. But it was just really interesting talking, like just kind of shortly with Jake about that and like how much later on it took him a long time to kind of get that diagnosis. I know Anthony Green has bipolar as well. Jake said, like, I have the good one, and he was like, which one is that? The bipolar I, bipolar II. I was like, I don't know. Is there any good one?
One or two. I don't think it's any good one. I have compulsive tendencies too.
Yeah.
I obsess over things, and like I'm the guy that constantly has to have paper around. And if I'm thinking about something, I have to like do written checklist and go over the checklist and like, real time pro and con list on a piece of paper type of thing, because I obsess like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of that kind of became like building computers and building and stuff like that, to where I obsess over like the right materials and the right pieces and the right parts, and then I make a big list, and then I kind of dwindle down from that to where I finally get what I need, and like I'll go for months doing that. So that's how my
well, speaking of like building computers, did you just get like, were you like shit out of luck during COVID when like everybody all of a sudden bought graphics cards and like
what's kind of funny is like I built during COVID too. That was when I built I'd always built. I started building PCs in about 2005. And then my brother worked for a local animation studio that they were constantly having to update their computers, but they didn't know anyone that did it. So I took it upon myself to build all their computers.
That's awesome.
So like I would set up like an assembly line on my countertop and just put each piece in a time and like just have this whole,
Yeah.
conveyor belt style building process. And I built for them for a while. And then I built my own gaming PCs and stuff like that. And that kind of started because my dad got into computers, but
Okay.
he didn't know anything about computers. And he had these younger kids build him one, and they charged him like, God, it was probably $2,500
Oh my
back
gosh.
in 93 or 94 or something like that. And he got it up and running and everything like that. And it was just the most garbage computer ever. And then we took it apart and realized it was like whatever parts they had laying around, and they charged him like full price.
Interesting.
So I was just like, he got his money back. And I was like, why don't you just let me build your computer? And then we went and shopped for the parts, and I built my first PC that way.
Nice. That's awesome.
So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. So I've always just kind of done it. So
Yeah. I just really quickly going, like you said, you weren't diagnosed until much later in life.
Mhm.
Looking back, can you see the elements? So, I mean, you said you're bipolar 1 or bipolar 2?
I'm bipolar too.
Okay, so
Yeah.
bipolar 2 typically is like less prolonged manic episodes, right?
Yes.
Like shorter manic
Yeah.
episodes, kind of shorter depressive
But
episodes.
my manic episodes, when my manic episodes were definitely very extreme when I did have them, but they were for shorter periods of time.
Okay.
So it would be like I would just go like I had all the energy in the world in one stop, and I would just be completely manic. And I had like 3 jobs and 2 bands and everything like that. And I slept like 2 hours a night and stuff like that. And then I was partying on top of that. So like I was doing all of these things like there was no tomorrow, basically. So that's how my disorder works. So
And then did you crash after that, or was there kind of like a leveling out?
I would level
And
out, everything would become normal
yeah,
for a few weeks, and then something would just click, and I would just go again. So
but looking back, can
yeah,
you see it now in different parts of your life?
sure, yeah,
Yeah.
and once I was diagnosed, I didn't try very much like medication. I wasn't
Mhm.
medicated too often for it. I think I took like Depakote, and
Okay.
then they were talking about some other things, but I started out with what I thought was a fairly high dosage of Depakote, which is like 500 milligrams. And then before I knew it, she had me up to like 2,500 milligrams of it.
Wow.
And then she was talking about I pretty much hit my limit, and that they were going to have to look in. But by that point, I know that it was like a mood stabilizer and to help with a chemical imbalance, is what she said. But it just made me feel lethargic, and it made me
Okay.
feel like I wasn't myself anymore.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have any kind of creative energy left once I started taking the medicine. And then once you kept upping the dose before we switched, it just became to where I just didn't feel like myself anymore. I went through a lull. Like we had a hiatus with Casket Lottery
Yeah.
for like 2.5 years because of it. And I just didn't
Because
do
of being
anything.
on the Depakote.
Yeah, like we kind of took a hiatus in 2004, and then it took me 2 years on the medicine before finally I weaned myself off and stopped taking it again. And then we got back together in 2006 and started working on new material. And then that ended up not working out. We just ended up going on a hiatus again like 2010. So yeah,
um so really really interesting. I find did you end up getting on like lamotrigine or something like that, or
I haven't been on any kind of medication
oh
since
wow.
2008,
Oh
2009.
wow, congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not a good idea, but it was just one of those things. I just didn't like the way it made me felt. And my wife has pointed out, I was like, well, that was just one medicine. You don't know, something else could have taken you in a different direction. But I was just too scared at the time that it would
Yeah.
just zap me of my creativity. And
Well, I mean, that's a valid fear, right? Like if you're creative, I mean, if your primary, I don't know, creativity is a part of somebody, right? It's a part of their DNA almost, and like to have that taken away from you, that's got to be a really really odd feeling. Um, like I find what I find really interesting about bipolar disorder and how it's medicated is that they're anti-seizure just
yeah,
medications.
and
You know,
that's what she explained to me too. She's like, it had been used for like migraine medications and anti-seizure medications and stuff like that. And it was like discovered by accident that it kind of had a dual purpose and could be used for.
Yeah, lamotrigine
yeah.
too is an anti-convulsive, like anti-seizure, which is, I mean, I'm personally on lamotrigine too. I am not bipolar, but it seemed I had a very, very severe anxiety trauma episode like last year sometime, and we were kind of throwing I've been on psychiatric medication for a really long time, and they were just kind of throwing everything at the wall. And so like, if we can just get your anxiety down like a little bit, like we'll do whatever.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of, I remember like being in high school and them trying to medicate me through OCD and just feeling like a guinea pig. And that's what it feels like, and this one doesn't work, or this one does this, and this one has side effects, and different stuff like that. So like it's a valid concern, and I think too, even as a therapist, if you can, not you personally, but people, if they can manage their mental health without the need for medication, like that's all the better.
Oh yeah.
Like you don't need to put stuff in your system. I mean, some people need it, right, to be able to function, but
yeah.
I know I've heard Anthony Green talk about his manic episodes where they are very creatively focused. Where like he'll go into like straight songwriting and it'll be just like zoned in like on that. Was that part of yours too? Like, did you get very creative in that?
I mean, it definitely, and a lot of that was seen in early like Casket records, to where Nathan is very prolific as a writer, and then we became very prolific as writing partners during that time too, to where we would getting in competitions not only with ourselves during the writing process, but with like we would see other local bands and we would see what they were doing. It's like, oh yeah, well they're going to show up with this song. We're going to show up a whole album worth of songs by the next show, and we were always like showing off new songs constantly. So we were always challenging ourselves, and but yeah, we became very prolific around that time.
Yeah. So, just yeah. I mean, kind of going back to the very beginning with music too. How did you make the switch to bass?
I had a friend of mine that had a band in high school called March, and they were playing a talent show, and their bass player had quit like 2 days before, and their singer quit. So they asked me if I'd play bass and sing for this talent show. So I learned like 8 songs for this talent show and played bass. And what was funny is that Jess Steiniger from Coalesce was at that talent show and didn't realize I played bass, and they had just lost their bass player.
Yeah.
So the next day he's like, "Hey, dude, you feel like putting down the guitar for a while and come playing bass in this band I'm working on right now?" And it was a Hare Krishna hardcore band called Amara.
Yeah.
And Krishna Core. He asked if I'd come jam with him, and we did. And that was like the early seeds of what would eventually become Coalesce.
So really, were you into the Krishna scene at that time, or?
It was Hare Krishna, yeah.
Okay.
Became Hare Krishna shortly after joining the band with Jeff.
Okay.
So he kind of brought it, and how I discovered it is like he saw me at the talent show, kind of brought up the idea of playing in a band with him. And then a couple weeks later, we had a show at this punk rock venue called the Rumble Box, and it was 108 and Shelter.
Okay.
And then Sean Ingram's band Restrain was playing that same show as the openers for 108 and Shelter. So I got there, and it was full on 2 Hare Krishna bands, and they had a big chanting circle, and they had Radunga drums and stuff like that. And they did a prayer circle, if you will. And that was my first taste of the Hare Krishna lifestyle. And then I was just like, I felt so great about it. And I saw how happy it made Jess. And I'd always kind of try to find that for myself as kind of spiritual guidance through either Christianity, Catholicism, Mormonism. I tried my hand at several. And it was the first one I felt like truly welcome and that I could truly see myself falling into. So within a couple of weeks, I was shaving my head, and I had my japa bag and my beads, and I was chanting Hare Krishna.
You went real.
Like I said, obsessed.
Yeah,
Yes.
full
Yeah.
in, full in.
No, and it's just like it was just an extreme, and it was just one of those things. Like I don't just kind of commit to things. That whenever I find something interesting, I just fully commit. And I become obsessed with it, and I did that for shoot since '93 up to like '97.
Okay.
I was a Hare Krishna. So
How old were you when you first
um, that
started?
would put me at about 17,
Okay.
17 or 18.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I always have this, one of the big kind of themes that I see with teenagers as well, and even myself, like the, uh, I mean, this is a little bit different now, and I've talked to several people about this. That the melding of different cultures and different like genres and different things like that. It, there was as a teenager, I feel like you really need to find something that you connect with, right? Something that there's an identity in,
Oh yeah.
and so for me, a lot of it was Christianity, and I was a music guy, and and then when I was in my 20s, I was like, I wouldn't call myself like an emo kid or something like that, but that was the type, I was into some of the third wave emo bands, Taking Back Sunday, like all those, and it was really like I was like, this is me now. Have you ever watched
Brother. That was my little brother. He was
Yeah.
super into Taking Back Sunday and
Yeah.
Newfound Glory and the Used and all that stuff. And because of who I was, I mean, I'm not saying I'm like, a celebrity of any kind, but most of them grew up with Coalesce hardcore.
Yeah.
So they knew who I was because of Coalesce. So like he got to meet all the Newfound Glory guys. He got to, get on the tour bus with the Used guys, got to meet All American Rejects and stuff like that. And, I mean, Coheed and all them just because they
Yeah.
knew who Coalesce was. I got to introduce them to them just because they knew who I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was kind of this like really cool moment for me. Like I'm no celebrity by any stretch of the imagination, but what limited celebrity I have,
You could use.
I look really cool in my brother's eyes for
Yeah.
that one moment in time. His older brother was cool.
Dude,
So
older brothers are always cool, man. I always looked up to my brother as well. We never agreed eye to eye on the type of music that we that we listened to.
luckily, he and I were close enough in genre interests that we kind of did meld that way. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, what did you find, I guess, enriching, or even like, do you feel like I don't want to say it wrong. So it's Hare Krishna, right?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, yeah.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, that finding your place in that, do you feel like that was beneficial to just even your mental health in general when you were a teenager?
It was the healthiest I'd ever felt, and not only like mental health, but my intelligence. Like I felt smart just because I became so well read as far as that went, and it was so against everything my parents grew up knowing. So I was the weird bald Krishna kid that showed up at Thanksgiving and had to explain to my parents that I couldn't eat the turkey and stuffing anymore because they didn't know. And my mom swore up and down that the Hare Krishna were brainwashing me because I didn't eat hamburger, that I was susceptible to brainwashing. And it's like, no, I'm just thinking for myself, and this is what I want to do. And I felt healthy and I felt happy, and so it was just so against the grain with my family. My family did not know what to make of it. Same with being a musician. My parents were just like, you just make babies and work until you die. And I was just like, that's not
For me.
That's not, yeah.
Yeah. What, like, how soon did you kind of figure that out for yourself in terms of like, this is what I want to do?
By the time I was like 17 or 18 years old, like I was like, that's it. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. As like I said, as a lower middle class kid, like I could have never imagined anything like that happening to me. That was just I had family that fought in the war. I just had family that were addicted to drugs and stuff like that. So like for me to say, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my mind to it. I'm going to learn to play music. I'm going to make records and stuff like that. That was just,
it's like a pipe dream, right? Like,
oh yeah. So I mean, any modicum of success I had seemed like I was on top of the world. I was a rock star at that point. That's because I never imagined in a million years that I would have accomplished anything like that creatively. So yeah.
So I mean, like, let's talk a little bit about Coalesce and how you got involved. I mean, you're technically a founding member, right?
Yep.
So how did that work itself out? Because I mean, it's such a cool type of music. I mean, there's a lot of like, I would say math.
Yeah, it's for rock. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jeff Steiniger was like well versed in jazz. He was a jazz guitar
That
player
makes sense.
at high school, and I had no theory at all. So like, I wasn't bound by like musical teaching, so I just wrote what fit. So like he would write these angular songs all the time, and just because I didn't have a book telling me that I shouldn't play this way, I just played how I felt and what felt right for the song. So that's how he and I kind of like fed off each other. That's why we worked so well. That was our chemistry together. He could write the weirdest stuff, and I would be able to keep up with it.
Which is
And
honestly, even like, I don't know music theory. I don't know any of that shit, but like, I cannot play like mathy type of stuff. Like, that seems like a really, being that you don't know that, like, that's really fucking technical shit.
yeah,
To
yeah.
play.
And I have a very mathy brain to begin with.
Yeah.
Like I think in math terms most of the time. So for me, and I may have came from being in Coalesce and having to know math to do Coalesce type thing, that my brain just naturally goes that way.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he was once I met Jess and he brought me in and I saw what he was doing and I just immediately like gelled with it. And then the crazier he wrote, the more I was into it.
Yeah.
So, and it was initially it was Jess, our friend Jonathan Wilmoth, and his brother Jeremy, and that was our original form of the band, and it was called Breach. And then we moved over to Amara, and then after Amara, we went with I got it backwards. Amara, and then Breach, and then Breach became Sean Ingram. We wrote early Coalesce stuff, and we contacted Sean, who had just moved back from Syracuse, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Jess we need to reach out to Sean and see if he wants to sing for us. And we kind of held Sean in this pedestal, like, he was hardcore royalty to us.
Yeah.
And it was like, there's no way he'll want to sing with us stupid kids. So we gave him a demo of the tracks. And the next thing you know, he shows up and we wrote Harvest of Maturity. And it was just like, it was that quick. Like once Sean joined, we wrote Harvest. And I still remember the practice vividly because we knew this song like inside and out. So like we played it and it was just like a machine to us. Like we just did it and it was autopilot. And then Sean came in and the first time he hit the chorus, be resurrected again, again, again. Like I remember Jess falling on the floor. He was like rolling around and like I had butterflies on my stomach and I could see our drummer just like put his head down and he was like, this is it. And that was the birth of what became Coalesce.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's super crazy. I mean, even the kind of style of music that you guys were writing, what was even obviously jazz was something that you said was influencing you guys, but like I'm trying to think of anything at that time that would be kind of comparable around that.
I was listening to like the metal era of Bad Brains when they became super metal. And then I was also listening to stuff like Shudder to Think.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's very angular as well. And, the way their song construction is, it's not typical song construction. So, and then Jess was like straight up metalhead. He was like in a Metallica, and we were also listening to like Pantera, like Vulgar Display of Power and stuff like that, which was at the time the heaviest thing any of us had ever heard, basically. So,
right.
And then Tool kind of started coming in there too. So Tool was this whole other math. So we started listening to a lot of Tool, and that kind of shaped where we went too. So it was always kind of a mixture of like Tool and Helmet and stuff like that. Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. I mean, a lot of bands, like you said, those bands knew who Coalesce were, but like really, really adored Coalesce.
And tell me before, like, you don't take enough credit for what you did. You guys were a band's band.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's great in theory, but I wish that paid. Type of thing. It's just like, it's just like
that makes sense. Yeah.
It's like the Get Up Kids. They're not a band's band. That's a band.
Right.
They're a fans band, not just like a band's band type thing. So.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's it's like kind of thinking about it. Like the idea that as a kid growing up in this kind of like middle class, like poverty mindset and then going to an incredibly unstable like career in music.
Well, it was one of the things too that, because it was a creative outlet, especially as I got older, I was able to not be medicated because that was my outlet. And when I was having these emotions and these feelings and this anger, like I had a way to channel it. And with Coalesce, it was through aggression, and it was our live shows. Like we were all suffering from some kind of mental disorder in the band. There wasn't a healthy person in that group. And, it was always being expressed in a live environment. So like a lot of that came to smashing, instruments and oftentimes smashing one another.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was times we would all leave bloody and feel totally fine about it. But it was cathartic. We got something out of our system and we kind of just like sweat it all out on stage. And then when we walked off stage, no one can believe that the people that were just up there doing that were the same people that walked off because our disposition was completely different. From when we were up there, the intensity was like it had waned, it had gone. So we were a different person when we came off.
Just how did you feel when you came from a show? Like, was there this kind of like high to a come down?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it was always like that. It was just like the next show couldn't happen soon enough because it was just like we needed our fix type of thing.
Yeah.
So we would tour and we would play a show, and then some kid would come up and say, "Hey, I've got a basement. Will you come to my house and play my basement?" We would just pack right up and go play some kid's basement. Play a couple shows a day, and we would just always wanted to be kind of moving.
I think it's super interesting because like what I would say is probably what's being released as adrenaline, right? Like not only adrenaline, but dopamine, those different kind of things that are going through there.
Sure.
And something that I've kind of learned about anxiety is that when you get anxious, you get flooded with adrenaline too, but it feels so different than, like it's fight or flight mode and it feels terrible, but it's the same chemical that's also being released when you're like skydiving and stuff like that. And just how even getting those hits, like music provides, like you said, an emotional outlet. And for me, it was the same thing. I would tell people that like I never felt more alive than when I was performing. Being up there and then just like the same thing kind of coming off and just being like, I don't know if I want to talk to anybody, type of thing.
A lot of times it was like out of body too. Like, I don't know if Jess felt the same way, but like I would be watching myself from outside of my body.
Crazy.
And like, I couldn't believe, like, it was like, I was watching as an audience member, I couldn't believe this was me doing these things. And it was one of those things that was just autopilot. For me, like once the music was learned, it was autopilot and it was just strictly emotion. So whether or not the song was being played the right way, like I'm sure it was, but it was one of those things that was like, it was all emotion at that point. So
do you know Jason Gleason, who was a lead singer for First Seems Forever after Chris Carrabba?
I've met Jason Gleason. We did a few stints with Further Seems Forever after Carrabba left. And we did a few things on the West Coast and a few things on the East Coast with him.
Him and I had kind of talked about just the zone that he was talking about how the same thing kind of happens to him when he's performing. He would kind of get in this zone and it would be like autopilot, and then in a blink of an eye, it felt like the set was over, and he would be like, what just happened? And we were talking about what that kind of, he's like, if somebody could put a name to that zone that you get in, he's like, that would be wonderful. But like, it's a zone that it's kind of crazy. But the idea of being able to almost like really, I was a very quiet kid, so like held my emotions in, but I could write angry songs, and like that was my release of emotion too as well, which if I had not had that or even aggressive music, I don't know what my outlet would have been. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, it probably would have been violent tendencies, probably,
right.
in
Yeah.
my case, it
Yeah.
probably would have been, you know, street fighting, anything like that.
Right.
I would have got into boxing. I tried martial arts for a little bit, but it's like
Yeah.
I just didn't. Music really hit me more than martial arts did, and so it won out.
So
But I probably would have done that.
how did your time in Coalesce end?
Well, we had kind of been. I'd struggled with it for like the last year or so of being in the band. Uh, at the time, Chess and all those guys were like full on into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like working a full time job, like, and I, I felt the pull of financial responsibility. So I was like working all the time, and they would like write entire records while I was at work, and then I would have to come home when I got off work, whatever time that was. I worked at Blockbuster at the time, so I'd either be off at 4 o'clock or I'd be off at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'd have to spend whatever time I had learning everything they did while I was at work. So like I felt like this kind of I wasn't a full participant in the band at that point.
Yeah.
Like I still had my creative input.
Yeah.
I still had my creative input and stuff like that. But by the time I came in there, I didn't have the chemistry of writing those songs with them. So I didn't have the emotional connection of those songs. And that was like Give Them Rope. Like that entire record was us writing separately. So they would write that record and I would just come and listen to it, learn the parts, and then that was my writing process.
How did that
feel? I wasn't there to get the feel of it and the vibe of it. So I just kind of wrote what was there. And by the end of that time, we did the record. We had signed with Very Distribution at the time. We had done our first EP with Earache Records, and then they ended up not doing the LP. So Very Distribution did the LP, or I can't remember the name of the record label anymore, but it was Very Distribution that put it out, but it was his record label, like the wing of his record label that did it. They put out Give Them Rope. And by the end of that recording cycle and that touring cycle, I had just completely cut myself off from it. So we played the East Coast, and to start out, like my bank had changed debit card to ATM providers. So I didn't know. My mom never gave me the mail that said, "Hey, you need your new bank card." So I got all the way to the East Coast, and I had no access to an ATM because my bank card was sent at home, and it was too expensive to Western Union money. So like Dan Askew from Second Nature was touring with us at the time. He was like one of our roadies, and he basically had credit cards, and he paid for my entire tour, and I had to give him my entire paycheck when I got back from tour. So he helped me survive that tour, but it was just like one mental stress and one situation after another. And then, like I said, we would put it out on stage, and we would do violent things on stage and all the time break instruments and stuff like that. And we got to, I should know this. I shouldn't forget this. We played Pennsylvania, and that was my last show. And I remember we were like one of the heaviest bands at this show. And I remember the Get Up Kids played out right after us and stuff like that. And I think Ethel Meserve played before us. We played, destroyed everything. And the Get Up Kids had to follow afterwards. It was Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
Like last
and that was my last show.
Mass Pike, like right after. Like...
And I remember Matt getting up there and he's like, "Hey, say hello to our friends in Coalesce. That was amazing." Like he's like, "Those are homegrown friends over here," and stuff like that. And I remember what happened is like we made it about 3 songs into the set, and Jess smashed his guitar, threw himself into James' drum set. James jumped off the drum set into the audience. Sean was being stomped on, and I just turned around, turned my amplifier off, wrapped my cord up, put my guitar back in the case, and rolled my amplifier out of the building. And that's how I quit. I just walked right out of the building. I packed all my stuff up, and it's like, yep, this just isn't where I want to be anymore.
Wow.
And at
Wow.
the time I got outside, the police had already been called on us because apparently James DeWeese had thrown his kick drum up in
This,
the air, or floor tom up in the air, and it got beach ball crowd surfed to the back of the room. And some poor girl at the Get Up Kids merch table had this floor tom bounce off her head.
God.
And before we know it, like everyone said we assaulted this girl, and they called the police trying to
Whoa.
get us arrested for assault. And the girl's like, I didn't get assaulted. I was just standing there, and I got.
Right.
And she
Part,
like, no,
yeah.
no, they didn't assault me, and just. You know, and the police like, you want to explain to me what was going on? And we had to say, we're in a hardcore band, like porn hardcore, no, a metal band. Come on. So yeah, and that was just it for me. Like, and then Jess is just like, well, we still got like 3 days left on this tour. It's like, with what equipment?
Yeah.
We were touring with a lot of these bands, so like they were going to be at the next show. And he was like, well, what is borrow equipment? I was like, who the hell is
Yeah.
going to lend you equipment after
You
what you
can't
just did?
smash somebody else's equipment,
So
right?
I can't trust that we're not going to do that to some poor dude's instrument that he loves. So I was like, they're not
Yeah.
going to do it. So we quit the tour and came home from that point. So
What
straight home from Pennsylvania.
what clicked like in your head in that, like, this is in the middle of the set?
Yeah. Like we were like 3 songs in, and it just started going crazy. And at that point, it was just this wall of noise. And I just looked around and was like, this isn't where I want to be anymore. Just turned around and turned my amplifier right off and rolled my cables up. And like I said, just rolled my amp right out onto the sidewalk. And then by the time there's like, everyone was just like, hey man, they're still in there. And I was like, yep, I'm not. Then all my equipment is sent by the van. And I told Dan, I was like, can you watch this for a minute? I need to take a walk. And I walked about 2 miles down the street to a restaurant and had a conversation with the waitress there. And then after I paid for my food, I came back and, you know, this is my cat.
Hello, kitty.
So, and it was just it. Like, I don't know, something just hit me right there. Like when I watched it, like I said, it was like an out of body thing. And I was just like, this isn't where I want to be anymore. And
Was it like, what the fuck are we doing? Or is it just like this? I know this is not.
I think a little bit of that. Like, it was kind of like, I felt like the musicianship was gone and it was more about the showmanship. Like,
Sure.
It was, people wanted to see what we would destroy. They cared more about what we destroyed than they did what we were playing. And I was like, that's not why I got into music. I mean, it's cool to have that energy and stuff like that, but I also don't want to be known for the band that just hurts themselves all the time.
Right.
It's no longer about the artistic merit, I guess. And then it was all about like the destructive merit. So
not going to be a hardcore GG Allen.
No.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't relate.
That's I mean, that kind of reminds me of what At the Drive-In kind of used to do. You know what I mean? Like, it would just be so insane.
What was funny is that we were right before the Drive-In split, we were in talks to do a show in Las Vegas with them.
Oh, really?
And it was pretty much set up and we were on our way, but it was like kind of up in the air like the entire time we were driving up the West Coast. And I remember showing up to Vegas, and as soon as we pulled in, I got a call from a friend saying, hey, the show was moved to a record store. I was like, yeah, the Drive-In's playing a record store? I'm like, oh, you didn't hear? At the Drive-In broke up. Yeah, they were just like, oh, you didn't hear? At the Drive-In broke up. They're like, what? And then, like, you know, a couple of days later, we found out the record label folded because they had like invested all their money in that record. And then the record label folded. And that was the Beastie Boys, the Grand Royale Records. I think they put that out. And so, like, yeah, that they folded the band, folded the record label, and all that stuff, all in like one setting. I was like, oh, well, they want our chance to play with At the Drive-In. So
yeah, but then you got Sparta and the Mars Volta, and I'm actually a really big Sparta fan. Like, I love that album. I mean, I love Mars Volta too, but
I tell everybody on the Deloused tour that they did, I remember they played one of our bigger halls here in Kansas City. And the promoter, Jackie Becker, who also promoted Casket Lottery and booked a lot of shows for Casket Lottery early on, she knew how big of a fan I was. And she was just like, she came up to me after watching like rehearsal. And she was just like, this must have been what it felt like to watch Led Zeppelin live in their prime.
Yeah.
And I was so excited. And it was like the last time I can remember seeing a band and just getting butterflies and having this level of excitement just to watch somebody else play. Like, it was just insane. It was like, I watched it and I was like, it'll never be better than this. This is the best thing I've ever seen. And it's still one of the best shows I've ever seen. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Sorry, I'm just thinking about it. And I've said this before on the podcast that, like, I had a very like spiritual experience. It's my brother went to the show too, and I don't remember a lot of this, but apparently, so I went to go see Jeremy Enick play solo, and in Bellingham.
Wing era.
Yeah, and he no, actually, it was River to Sea. So he did an album after that, and he came up to Bellingham, and it was just him and a bottle of wine that he had, but he showed up super late, and we were like, but like listening to that him sing just in general was like this really weird, not even weird, it was awesome, like spiritual experience. I was like, what am I experiencing here? Like just just crazy, and there's bands that can that do that, you know what I mean, like meet people where they're at. And that's what I think is so like cool about music and special, just in general, is that people relate to different things. Like I always say that you can create something as a musician, even if you're like an unknown, like somebody's going to like it. Somebody's going to connect with it, and that's what's really super cool. When you quit Coalesce, did you feel adrift at all?
No, not at all. Actually, it's like the most at ease I had felt in a long time because I no longer kind of had to figure out where I fit into that.
Okay.
Because that was kind of the struggle I had, is like I just didn't know where I fit anymore.
Yeah.
But after that, I mean, I still remember I quit, and what's funny is it's like Sean Ingram and I were really close, and I remember right before I quit, Sean showed up to the house because Jess and I lived together. Jess Steiniger and I lived together, in what we called the Coalesce house, because that's where we wrote Give Them Rope, and that's where all of our friends ended up crashing there most of the time. He shows up, and I was still a Hare Krishna at the time, and he showed up, and he was just like, "Are you about ready to sell out?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he had like a 12-pack of beer and a bag of hamburgers, and he and I just ate hamburgers and drank beer on the porch of this house, and that's when I sold out and became not Hare Krishna and not straight edge anymore.
You broke
like
edge,
all
yeah.
in one setting. It broke edge in one setting. And the only thing I could think of when I broke edge was, man, I missed out on so much stuff being vegan and straight edge back in the day. Like the food that was there was like so different than when I had, like McDonald's. It changed so much when I was vegan for all those years, like that stuff. But yeah, once he did that, like I felt relieved. But I was pretty ready to stop playing music altogether.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, yeah, I've accomplished more than I ever could have imagined, and I don't think there's any way that I could possibly top this or repeat it again. I don't think I would ever have anything that special again. And Nathan Ellis, who is the guitar player for Casket Lottery and plays guitar and sings in Abel Baker Fox and plays bass for Coalesce now, he took my place when I left.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember like there was kind of the hint that I may have stuck around. Like Jess and I were still talking like something was going to happen with Coalesce and everything like that. But like I got a new job and I was working a ton. And he called me up one day and basically said, like, I knew in Wilkes-Barre that I was done, that I was like, that was probably my last show. I had pretty much accepted it was my last show. But Jess was just like, hey, man, I want to get together and throw down, all this stuff. And then I show up to the restaurant and Coalesce is there. I sat at the table. And I was like, I know what's happening before you say a word like what. And then and Jess was, he was kind of dumbfounded because I know that he kind of built it up in his head. Like he had this whole speech ready, like his reasoning for letting me go type of thing. And I was like, save your speech. I'm done. Let's eat. And we ate and then I just left and that was it. So like, it's like, no hard feelings, man. I'm done. I'm ready to go. You don't have to, I've done all the hard work. You don't have to do the heavy lifting. I'm done. So, I mean, just, give Nathan a call. I'm sure he would love to play bass. And
that's kind of like a gift, right? Just to be able to be like, I've done all this for you. Like, we don't need to go this way. Yeah.
How it ended. And Sean, like, he talked to me the next day and he's just like, I hate how that ended. And I was like, dude, it ended exactly how I wanted it to. I left on my own terms. It's like, I know that the plan was to kick me out or whatever. I saved you guys the trouble, and I'm just gone. So I mean, just fill my space because there's someone that's going to be more devoted to it,
Yeah.
and it's going to be their thing, and you're going to connect with on a different level. And I tell everybody that's ever asked me, like, Nathan Ellis is the best thing that ever happened to Coalesce. Like, Nathan has been such an important part of that band. He was to me always the glue that kind of kept it together, because you had the two extremes of Sean and Jess, and there was always Nathan in the middle. That was the level-headed one that could kind of keep the two from butting heads, and also creatively guide them, like give them a creative focus, basically. Nathan is like a great friend, and he's a great friend to all of us. And like I said, he's the best thing that happened to Coalesce when I left. I couldn't have been happier that he took my place.
He's doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in this spot where you're feeling kind of better than ever, more stable than ever, just in terms of like how you're just, I guess, feeling in general. And then do you start to get this creative itch? Do you start to...
No, sold all my equipment, and I was just ready to be a regular ass person at that point. I didn't care anymore. Like, I was like, I've proven everything I needed to prove. I don't know if I need to, do it anymore. And one of my best friends at the time, named John Sewell, came to me and was like, "What are you doing, man? You're like one of the most talented people I know. Why would you just throw this away?" And it's like, "I have nothing left to say." And he's like, "You're full of crap. Give it 2 weeks and you'll have something to say again." And I was like, "No." And then he was like, "Before you quit, let me do something." And the next day I get a phone call from this local punk rock band called the Sunshine Vandals. And they're just like, "We're looking for a guitar player. We hear you play guitar." It's like, "Well, I don't have equipment." It's like, "We've got like 12 guitars and multiple amplifiers and stuff like that." Because their dad was like career musician dad. So as soon as they wanted it, they had every piece of equipment they ever needed to do it. So just show up. We have all the equipment you need. You can borrow ours until you get equipment. And if it works out, just borrow it until you can afford it. And I was like, fine. So I showed up to this punk rock thing, and
that sounded very reluctant. Fine.
Like, that's how it was with me. I was just like, I was done, but like, I was like, "All right, John, I'll humor you. I'll go do this."
Yeah.
So he like gave me a demo tape for like 6 of their songs they demoed, and I learned them in like an afternoon. So it's like 3-chord punk rock and stuff like that. So it wasn't real hard. So I learned it. And then I show up to practice, one playthrough of the set, and they're like, "We got a show next weekend. You want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah." Sure, so the next weekend, I played my first show with them, and then from that point on, I was with them for about a year and a half.
Okay.
And then Nathan Ellis, he was a roadie for Coalesce, and he was my co-pilot. So at night, I would do the night drives, and Ellis would be my DJ, and he would talk to me, and we would share our dreams about like the bands that we like and what we want to do in the future. And Coalesce wasn't what he wanted to do. He wanted to write what became Casket Lottery. So we would talk about that. And then I remember putting a benefit show together for this local venue called the Fuse Box that was on the verge of being shut down. So I reached out to all my friends. And it's like, if I could book this benefit show and keep you open long enough to do the repairs of the building or whatever, do you think you can keep the venue going? Because it's a very important venue, because we had very few. So I did it, and I booked Coalesce as one of the bands in the show. And I remember after the show, Nate was like, "Before you leave, I want to talk to you, man." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So he went outside and he handed me a cassette of basement recordings of what became the early Casket Lottery stuff. He's like, "This is what I've been working on. Listen to this, and let's get together in a couple of weeks and start working on it." And so within a couple of weeks, I was playing with Nathan, and we started working on early Casket stuff. The punk rock band I was in, their dad was like I said, the dad was like super career focused. And he's like, "You're either in this band or you're not. We're not splitting interests. You can't be in both." So I was like, "Easy enough. I'll be there next weekend to pick my equipment up."
Well, it's like Jason Newsted and Metallica, right?
And he's like, "What?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I'm done." And he was like, "What do you mean you're done?" And I was like, "I'm done. I walked away from Coalesce halfway through a set.
Right.
What makes you think you've already given me warning? I have plenty of time to think this through and come and get my stuff." So I quit. And then I sold all my guitar equipment that I'd bought for the punk rock band and bought bass equipment. Nice. So actually, no, I had my guitar equipment for a while, and Nate was playing. I had like a really nice Paul Reed Smith guitar.
Nice.
And a 5150 amplifier. and all this stuff that I bought for this punk rock band. And the only thing that remained, Nate still has a 5150. He still has my half stack, and that's
Nice.
his favorite amp ever. He like keeps changing tubes out, and it's still going after Jesus 26 years. So it's still
That's
going.
crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. And like, so just to recap, you're
Uh-huh.
completely done. And like, I often hear the phrase, I don't like from other musicians too, is that when they're done, they're like, I just don't have anything more to say.
Yeah.
Right. And what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, by the time I was done with Coalesce, I just felt like the well had run dry. Like I felt like I had a bag of tricks that I kept going back to for Coalesce. And I felt like by the end of Coalesce, I started repeating myself. And my bag of tricks had basically, I'd hit the bottom. There was nothing new I could do that would to make that band any better.
Okay.
So I just felt that I had nothing left to offer. So, and with like, at that point, like I said, like I was just done. I was completely content with being done with music. I was just like, I'm just going to be a guy that works retail jobs and, and stuff like that. I'm fine. And then the punk rock band was the opportunity. And as much as like the end of that band was pretty hard, like with on them and everything like that, and they tell me basically you can't do both bands, it's either this band or that band, I just walked away. Like they helped me continue. There wouldn't be a Casket Lottery had I left music at that point. Like had I not joined the punk rock band, there wouldn't be a Casket Lottery, because they gave me something like a different direction. So like I'd never written punk rock before.
Gotcha.
So
you got
me,
a whole new filling of a well for a different. Okay.
I got to write in a different way.
Yeah.
And I became one of the primary songwriters in that group. And like the direction shifted, it became a little heavier. And then it became a little more emo, I guess, because it was like straight up like face to face type punk rock. And then I introduced them to Lifetime.
Okay.
And then it became Lifetime, basically.
Jersey,
it became
baby.
like super fast Jersey, like emotional hardcore.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. So
yeah.
And it became a lot like Lifetime.
So then I would assume then like you guys start Casket Lottery, and then now you're in a whole new well. Like,
oh yeah.
And
that's what I said. We were so prolific early on because like this was an entirely different direction. Early in Casket Lottery, we split duties. So Nathan would write a song and I would write a song, and mid set I would play guitar and he would play bass. And
that's pretty cool.
And we did that for like maybe 3 or 4 shows. They're like, this is stupid. You're a way better guitar player than I am a bass player, and you're a way better bass player than I, like that type of thing. And we just like, you just play bass and I play guitar, and we'll concentrate on what we do best. And I would like bring a couple riffs or whatever, and then he would build off my riffs, and he'd bring riffs to me, and I would build off his bass lines and stuff like that. So
that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool process. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very collaborative. And then, with Nathan Richardson, our drummer junior, when we met him, he was 15.
I think I read that somewhere. Yeah.
On the verge of turning 16. And I remember Nathan says, yo, I got this kid, he plays drums. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. You said kid, like how old are you? He's like, he's like 15. And I was like, oh God, I don't need a little brother. So we show up, and like, he was hairier than me. He had like a full beard. And we called him Beard early on because it looked like he was a 30-year-old man. He didn't look like he was 15. It looked like he was 30. And we showed him like, you got to be kidding, right? This is some dude's dad, right? He's like, no, this kid's like 15. And we showed up, and like, he was so beyond his years just playing. There's no way anyone that age should play that well. He was just a prodigy, and it was just like, yeah, we got to play with this guy, because if anyone else gets this guy, they're going to blow up. So we need to make sure no one ever gets this guy, type of thing. Like that was always a joke. Like, he's so much better drummer than we are guitar players and bass players. So we were like lucky to have him. So yeah, and it helped my writing. I've never written better. Like those early Casket Lottery, especially all the way through. I think I started to kind of wind down as far as feeling like I had run out of my bag of tricks again by the time we hit Real Fear. Like Real Fear was like a struggle for me. That's like the hardest record at that point, was the hardest record I had to write, because I just felt like it's just going through the motions and I'm just repeating myself. I found going back to the well for certain hooks that I'd written before and stuff like that. And I started hearing more and more of myself and older records in it. So I was like, I'm creatively bankrupt. I don't know what to do now. So and Nathan was just like, no, 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 this is great. This is great. Do this, do this. And we like, he was always kind of like dragging me along and being my cheerleader at the same time. Cause he's like, no, 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 this is great. I like that idea. Let's work on that. And then he would like work me through it. Where before he would just show with a riff and I didn't know what to do. Like with him, I never had to think about it. Like as soon as I heard the guitar riff for some reason, it just came out that way.
That's like a
and
syncopation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I look back at it, and I tell people this all the time. Like I look back at that early Casket Lottery records, and like I cannot tell you in a million years how I wrote those. I don't remember writing them. Like I just know they were just there. Like Nathan brought the guitar riff, and next thing you know, that they were just there. I have no explanation for how that came out of me. Like I'm surprised by what I did, and I can never answer how I did it. It just happened.
If you could credit something, if you could guess, like, what do you think it would be?
I mean, I think it was just the energy of Nathan. It was infectious. Like he was like, every time I saw him come to, like he wrote some riff that I would have never thought of in a million years. Like his playing style is so out of left field for like emo bands and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like he's got a very traditional singer-songwriter style, but it's angular. So like the whole Coalesce being angular kind of rubbed off on him. And so like growing up with bands like Giant's Chair and Boy's Life and Season of Risk, everything always kind of had that angular approach to it. So he was just inspiring, like to watch him bring these new riffs, and like it's unlike anything I'd ever heard. So for me, it was just easy to try to write around that because it was like nothing I'd ever done before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. Where does the name come from?
The Casket Lottery?
Yeah.
It's Shakespeare. It's called The Merchants of Venice.
Yeah.
And at the end of the play, the protagonist is given the choice to choose between three caskets.
There's that Shylock?
A gold, silver, and bronze casket.
Okay.
And it's basically a test to see which one you pick. So, obviously you would want to go for the gold because it's worth the most or whatever. If you go for silver, but if you choose bronze, that's the name of the first record, was Choose Bronze.
Gotcha.
Like that means that,
Cool.
Yeah. It came from the Merchants of Venice. Yeah.
Isn't the protagonist Shylock? Is that?
Nathan just came to me and told me like the idea behind the name. And I was like, that's all I need to know. Yeah. I mean, it's got caskets. It's got caskets in the name. So it's gotta be cool, right? It's like I was in a metal band in high school called Gravediggers. So why not Casket Lottery?
Nice.
So yeah.
I mean, did you imagine that it would turn into such a long career in that band?
In the beginning, I had hoped it would.
Yeah.
Almost 27 years now, Casket Lottery's been going.
Yeah.
So, even now, they're still kicking. They just put a new record, and it's an amazing record. But like I said, growing up like I did, I would have never imagined in a million years it would have lasted a year, let alone almost, I went on about 30 years of being a touring, writing musician and recording musician. So I would have never thought I would have had 30 years in anything.
Now, like, obviously there's a lot of there's a lot to be said about all the albums. The first time I was introduced to the Casket Lottery, I was in a mall in New Jersey, and I ran into the Aaron Marsh, who was the singer for Copeland. They were in the middle of tour, and he was just walking in the Garden State Plaza, which is like this huge mall in New Jersey. Uh-huh. And I was like, "Oh, are you Aaron Marsh?" or whatever. We started talking. And he's like, "Yeah, James, our bass player, is in Hot Topic. You should go say hi to him." And so I went in there, and James was buying Survival is for Cowards. And he was like, "There's this band you need to check out, and they're called the Casket Lottery." He's like, "You seriously need to listen to them." And that was the first time I heard of the Casket Lottery.
Get in on too. That's still my favorite record.
Is it
Survival? Yeah, Survival is my favorite record.
I am a big, like, one of my favorite songs by you guys is Dead Deer. I've listened to that on repeat for a really long time. But what makes that your favorite record?
It was the the most healthy I felt, like mentally. But at the time, I mean, the whole survival thing, my interpretation of it is like Nathan was a new parent. He had
Mm.
just had a child, and the feeling that this may be the last Casket Lottery record, because I thought it was going to be the last Casket Lottery record at that point. So like I put everything I had into that record. Like my bass lines, I think, are the best bass lines I've ever written. Like a few of the songs, like the bridge, not the bridge, what I built.
Mm-hmm.
I had brought that to Nathan because I had a nightmare that I had a blueprint for a bridge that was supposed to. It was like it's all metaphorical. It
Yeah.
was going to span this ocean and bring these two warring factions together, and I was going to bring these two warring parties together, and there was going to be peace. But in order for me to build this bridge, there had to be sacrifice, and my brother and my family were the sacrifice. So all my family
Oh,
died during the construction of this
wow.
bridge. And I told him this story, and I started writing the lyrics for what would become what I built. And that was like one of the first times is like, yeah, that's great. That's got to be a song on there. And then from that point on, it was like we started writing that way for the rest of the record. So, but for me, it was desperation,
Hmm.
just because I felt it was probably going to be the last Casket Lottery record. And at that point, I felt like the most creative I had ever. Like I felt like everything that I was putting out was like perfect for what like my ability, like my level of ability. And because I thought it was going to be the end, it was like written desperation. And I feel like that it translates well. Like when I hear that record, I can still feel where I was in my 20s and that desperation I felt that I was going to lose this at any time.
Hmm.
So the whole record was written with the idea that I was about to lose this. So I wrote it thinking that, I will never play with this band again after this record. So there's a possibility that if this is going to be my magnum opus or whatever, that I want it to be the best thing I've ever written. So I wrote with that in mind. Like I don't feel like I fell short on any of my parts on that record. So, so
Just, it's interesting hearing that you were the most healthiest mentally that you felt ever at that time, but you were on the cusp of losing something too, as well.
like
That.
I was so happy at the time because like I had been in a toxic relationship and I had gotten out of the relationship and I started taking care of myself. So like I was healthy, not just mentally healthy, but like
Sure.
physically healthy. Like because like when through moving mountains, like I was almost 300 pounds during the recording of Moving Mountains. And I was just so unhealthy and I was in a really bad relationship and I was struggling with that record. And I started drinking and all kinds of stuff during that record. And after that record and I ended that relationship, I stopped drinking. I started eating healthy again. I started cutting all the bad things out of my diet. I dropped like 135
Wow.
pounds in like a year. And I
Crazy.
went down from like 300 pounds, like topping out at 300 down to like 180 pounds. And I felt better than I'd ever felt in my life. So for me, it was just like what I needed.
Yeah.
So that's why I said like healthy. Like I felt so healthy and happy because I was in a relationship at the time I just started, and I was really happy with this person, and I was like, I can't get any better than this. So if this ends, this is how I want it to
Good.
end. Like
Yeah.
I'm in
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like it allowed you to put your whole self into, that's really interesting, like the juxtaposition of desperation, but also like happiness,
Mm-hmm.
right? At the same time, and like holding both
Yeah.
of those and somehow channeling that creatively in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. I've always been really, um, what's the word for it? Not surprised, but the bass is so prominent on Casket Lottery records in ways that it's not in other records. I feel like the tone, like it has a little bit more prominence in a lot of the records and a lot of other bands. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm just making that up, in in my head,
I
but
think because even with during my time in Coalesce, because with Coalesce, technically we had a singer, but Coalesce was a three-piece. So my job in Coalesce was always to fill out that space.
sure.
So I approached the bass like I was a second guitar player. So my bass lines were more akin to what you would hear a guitar player do, like a second, like a rhythm guitar player and stuff like that. So I always played that position. So in Casket Lottery, I had a similar position to where Nathan's parts were a little more noodly in parts. So I would write noodly bass parts to kind of keep up with what he was doing, but then I could also kind of dial it back and be the rhythm guitar player while he did all this intricate work. Because his vocals and his guitar work were just always so intricate. And I was just like, I knew exactly when to back off and when to kind of accentuate what he did. So that was just
You
always
can
our dynamic.
tell. Yeah.
I mean, that was always the dynamic. Is like for some reason, I just knew what needed to happen, and that's how I wrote, because I was like, this part needs this, but it doesn't need this. So I'll roll it back and play something simple here, and then pick it up where I need to. But we listen to bands like Jane's Addiction and stuff like that,
Okay.
and so like the bass was real prominent in that, and bands that were like three pieces, like the Police, like Sting is like one of my biggest influences. Like I love Sting, so like I wrote was like, what would Sting do? So all my bass lines were like his bass lines were always like, they sounded real simple, but they were so intricate in how he put them in this song. Like listen to Spirits in a Material World. Like who would have ever thought of that bass line? That bass line just doesn't make any sense in that song, but for some reason it works because of Stewart and Sting's dynamic. It works, but it's such a weird, that kind of that kind of gallop with the pause and the skip and all that stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to be Sting. That's all it
is. Well, you come close, that's for sure. I think like I feel like a lot of times bass gets missed just within records, or I playing in bands and stuff like that. It's always, the joke is always like, oh, the bass player is just, the guy off, like nobody listens to him. But like the bass parts are very prolific in them, and that's what I enjoy a lot about the Casket Lottery. It's not obviously your guys' songwriting, and I'm curious too, just where you yourself, did you do? Yeah, you wrote lyrics. Where did those lyrics come from? Obviously all over the place, but like, was it from personal life? Was it from struggle? From like when you would provide lyrics, where would?
It was a lot of was personal life. Like I told, like the nightmare I had about my family dying, constructing this bridge that became what I built, and then I wrote the lyrics to a song called "In 10 Years" that ended up being on the Smoke and Mirrors EP, which it's one of those that at the time I felt compelled to write it, but like we stopped playing that song. Well, we quit playing the song shortly after we put that EP out, because it was I met somebody that I went to school with who had went down a bad life path, and that song was passing judgment on them.
Interesting.
And it was one of those things that like I had no right to pass judgment. I don't know what kind of life experiences they had. I had one interaction with them where I drew my own conclusion and summed their entire life up in a 3-minute song and passed judgment on them in one song. And I felt so guilty from that point on. Like I wrote the guitar part and I wrote the lyric to that. And that was one that I was happy to never play again. So we thought it was just the most hardcore thing. Look, we're going to get our point across. Right. And we're going to damn this person for making these bad life decisions, not knowing what happened in their life to get them to that position. And stuff like that. So, a lot of it was personal experience and stuff.
Because we've kind of talked about the act of playing music as a therapeutic type of thing, both on stage, physically playing, catharsis in that way. And what about for you? I guess there's two ways we can go with this. Like listening to music, or like how is that catharsis for you? Or like what has impacted or helped you through some of these really tough things in your life, like bands or yeah, in general, like how has music really kind of
I
helped
mean,
you?
in between like my hiatuses and stuff like that, when I was taking breaks, like I can't imagine my life without music. And like especially like Jay Robbins from Jawbox
Mm-hmm.
and the Burning Airlines and stuff like that. Like I listened to a lot of him, and like lyrically, he always kind of hit hard, and then
Yeah.
like musically, like he was always so inspirational to me. And then like Shudder to Think was always one of those ones that like I always went back to. It was like it was almost like a comfort food for me.
Mm.
Like I think for me a lot with music and stuff, like I like newer music, but I listen to a lot of older music
Yeah.
just because when I hear it, it can instantly transport me to whatever
Right.
time I was in my life. Like so like the stuff I was listening to and playing during the Survivals for Cowards era of music. If I listen to any music from that era, I can instantly be transported back to my 20s
Yeah.
again
That's powerful.
and feel what I felt at the time. I can remember every motion and every like moment of that time. And like in Nathan used to make like he didn't really make fun of it. He was just like we would go places and I was like, hey, remember when we were here and we did this and we met this person and we did this? And he's like, how do you remember any of that? It's like because like my mind is a steel trap like that. Like those moments meant so much to me that
Yeah.
I forever like put them in my head or in my hard drive. And I
Yeah.
was like, I don't want to lose those. So like I can always draw from them if I'm having a moment of difficulty. Like I remember this one happy moment that at any point I'm doubting doing what I've done. I can always draw from that. And I was like, this is why I do that. And this is, this made me happy. And for that moment, like, yeah, I'm happy again. I
Yeah.
remember what that was like, and this is why I do this. And I think towards the end with Casket Lottery, I couldn't draw from that anymore.
Mm.
Like I couldn't go back to that anymore. Like I couldn't go back and say, this is what made me happy doing this. It was just for me, it was just gone. So I was just I
Interesting.
think that's why I walked away. And because I mean
Yeah.
we didn't even I didn't even finish the last Casket Lottery tour. We just had there was just a lot of infighting and stuff like that. Um, a couple, one of our we just weren't getting along for that last part of the tour. And I mean, the tour started out with us basically like going our separate
Mm.
ways and then coming together for the shows and then splitting off again and then coming together. That was like this accordion. And
That's really interesting because I want to say about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, I'd reached out to Nathan and to try and get him on, and we were kind of going back and forth, and then basically he essentially wrote me back and was like, I am not. He's like, I'm really sorry, but I'm not in a good place, like with the band and with
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
And he's like, I can't do it right now. And I was like, fair enough, man. Like,
yeah,
but that makes sense,
yeah.
and choosing to walk away from something after, would you say 23 years?
Yeah, we started Casket Lottery. Nathan and I started playing together in '97. So, and
What,
then I was with him until 2002.
what is that? What was that? What has that been like? What has it been like? What was it like to leave and then also see them continue on and now be on tour and make a new album and not be part of it?
With Nathan, I remember I basically had a panic attack
Mm.
in Detroit right after we played. Like I didn't sleep the entire night. I and about 5 o'clock in the morning, I went into Nathan. I was just a mess. I was in tears. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't stay here. I don't know what's going to happen if I stay. And he was just like, then we'll go. And he got everybody up and said, tour's over. We're going home. And then we got back and we had one meeting with the whole band. And Nathan was just like, balls in your court. And, this is like what do you want to do? This is basically all on you because I was the one person that was unsure. And it wasn't like he wasn't making me feel guilty. He wasn't
Sure.
trying to pressure me or anything like that. It was
Yeah.
literally like it had always been Nathan and I. Nathan and I were
Yeah.
the Casket Lottery.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's on you. Do you want to stay? You want to go? And I was just like, I think I want to stay. And he was like, don't think you want to stay. He said, we need to know for sure. So we spent the next week or so kind of not talking. And then we got together the following Saturday, just Nathan and I. We talked about it for a few minutes. And I was just like, let me, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Is what I told Nathan. And then I basically wrote Nathan as like, I think I'm done. It's the best thing for you guys is for you to move on because like before I've said, my bag of tricks was empty. I had no emotional attachment at that point to it. Like for me, my family was more important to me.
Sure.
Um, like I didn't want to miss my son growing up, and like there were so many moments that Nathan, watching him be a parent, and so many moments that he was out there with us were moments that he missed watching his kids growing up.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that for myself. As someone that felt like his parents weren't always there for him,
Yeah.
I didn't want my son going to somebody on a podcast one day and saying, my dad was never there for me.
Yeah.
So
That must have been a really tough decision, though.
it was. I mean, like I said, I've told Nathan, and it's a phrase I've repeated is like, I don't know who I am without it.
Mm.
And I told Nathan that, and he's like, but that's no reason to stay. I said, that can't be the only reason why you're staying. Just because you're so scared to find out what might happen if you're not here, that you stay with it and you make yourself unhappy and you get worse and potentially like make everything else worse for everybody else.
Yeah.
So that's the last kind of thing that we said that we were talking about it. And he was like, that's the last thing he said to me. And it took me the night to think about that. And the next morning I woke up and I was just like, he's right. I can't do that. I mean, he's carried me long enough and kind of like been my cheerleader and tried to let me know that I always have a place in the band and that, he's there for me and, he's my support system. But being the big brother and having a support system just wasn't enough for either of us.
Yeah.
So it was better for me to leave. And like Nathan said, when he reached out to you or when you reached out to him and he was like, I'm just not in a good place. Recently in a podcast, he was just like, he wasn't. And he was pretty much ready to hang up. And we pretty much had most of what became the next record demoed through our rehearsal space. So he has 9 or 10 songs that are never going to see the light of day. And Gene, who's the bass player now, told him, "Is just like, why would you do that? Why would you throw that away? I own a studio. I'm a bass player. Let's get this thing done." And then he kind of reinvigorated Nathan. Gene's been a huge booster for Nathan.
Yeah.
So
how did it feel for you to see that go on?
Oh, I'm relieved.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
And no, it's like I've told my wife several times, I've never felt more of a sense of relief leaving the band. Like having someone finally say, being scared to be without it isn't enough to stay. Like
it was like releasing you. Yeah.
Yeah. Having someone finally say that and having to be someone I'd spent, 2 decades plus with in my life tell me it's okay. We'll be okay without you type of thing, it's kind of letting me go.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I didn't feel tied to it anymore. So I didn't need Nathan's permission, but it was like, I wanted his permission to go.
Right.
So once he said that, I was just like, you know what? Okay, I'm good. I can go now. So, and I struggled with it for about 3 or 4 months. And then one day I was sitting at work and I had an idea for a story. And then next thing you know, I have a notebook full of the story. And then next thing you know, I talked to another friend who's like, this needs to be a series. And I was like, you think? And he's like, yeah, this is really good. Write a series. So I ended up writing 15 episodes for a fiction series.
Awesome.
And that's what I've been working on since I left Casket Lottery, is basically writing this fiction series.
Yeah.
So I got the first 15 episodes done. I created an entire world for it. So I've got like I think I'm up to like 37 docs right now in my Google file.
Nice.
The main storylines, side stories, single episodes, Monster of the Week episodes. The second season is already starting to outline it, even though I haven't even finished the first season, like actually released it. So,
how are you planning on releasing that, or like how are you working around that?
At the moment, I'm working with an editor. My friend Brian Peach. He works for CBS and AP.
Okay,
he's doing some editing for me.
Awesome.
And I think it's going to be a fully voiced podcast, so it's going to have actors and
nice.
It's going to have I've talked to Nathan already. He wants to work on the theme song for it. I'm going to be creating in-world bands that only exist within this world, but there's going to be opportunities really cool. to release new music. So like the bands will actually release new music, and there'll be merchandise for the bands and stuff like that, and music release and T-shirts and stuff like that.
Stacy, you found another well.
Yeah, I started creating like products within the world too. So like coffee brands and stuff like that, and my own version of like 23andMe and stuff like that, and I've created my own versions of like the X-Files and like these Stranger Than Fiction TV shows and stuff like that within the world. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been really busy.
It seems like it.
I'm hoping that it's out by the time I'm like 52 or 53 years old, but there's so much work that's going to go into it.
Yeah.
So
has that been keeping you sane, so to speak, too? Being able to have that outlet. Yeah.
Sure. Like I'm constantly working on it. So like I have like 40 characters in the story that I'm vicariously living through, and each one of them is kind of modeled after someone I've known in my life. So like a lot of the small brown bike guys and stuff like that are in this story as characters. They've shown up as characters and stuff like that. Nathan's in the story as a character. Like they're basically people I grew up with that have now become these living beings within this world I've created. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. So one of the characters I wrote for it is based on Travis from Small Brown Bike.
Yeah.
And like I had written the character, and I told my wife this too. Like when she had read the original first season, and this character died in that first season. And after Travis passed, I rewrote the character to have a full arc. He's going to be a main character now going forward within the story. And like losing Travis, I rewrote that entire character story and everything, and he carried on. And my wife told me, I'm so glad he lived. I like that character so much. So I saved him because we lost Travis, and I was like, he's going to live on in some way or another. So
that's really cool.
So yeah, that's why I wrote this one character. So
yeah, that's like a unique way probably to work through grief too. You know,
oh, it's for sure. It's like certain losses I've had and stuff like that, and things that I've seen in my life and done in my life have shown up in the story in strange ways. It's kind of like it's got a lot of cryptids, and like my version, like because I grew up watching horror movies, so this is like my interpretation of like universal monsters. So there's werewolves and vampires and stuff like that in there. So
one of your videos for one of the Casket Lottery songs is Nosferatu.
Yep. What?
Yeah, and I love it because I was a TV and film major in my bachelor's degree, and so like those old, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and those old like Germanistic expression films and stuff like that. Like I was, like to me, bar none, that the creepiest, like scariest movie is probably Nosferatu, just because it has that like, black and white, or it's just, it's.
What's funny about that is, so like after we did, God, I can't remember the first video that we had. A friend of ours, Ben Reed from Small Brown Bike, made the first video for that record. And it was that weird, random Russian astronaut video that he did with, and it was just all these like different disparate pieces that were put together to make this video. Then Nathan was like, we need to make more videos. So we went like public domain, anything that we could use that was public domain. That's how Nosferatu became More Blood.
Nice.
And I remember he's like, we're going to do More Blood as the next video. So my brother and I, we edited the video together.
Nice.
And it was like super slick. like video, like full color, super slick, high definition. And Nathan's like, not that one. And then it became the Nosferatu video that you saw.
That's really awesome. It's funny. I'm thinking about this too, that you were saying, like, my mind's still trapped, because when I was talking to Jason was like, you talk to Stacy, he knows everything about, like, he's the historian of that band. So Jason was 100%.
Yeah, we would
about that.
We would go out on tour and stuff like that, and random people would come up to me, and I remember who they were.
Whoa, that's crazy!
How do you remember me, dude? I met you like 22 years ago, and I was like 15. And I was like, well, yeah, I still met you. I mean, you made an impact on my life too. You were important to me too.
That is so that is a crazy gift to give somebody else too, right? Like,
I mean, I appreciated it because it was like I said, I never thought in a million years I would have done anything to impact anybody in my life. So if I impact a person, that's more than enough for me. And the fact that, you know, they still follow me and still appreciate me and come up to tell me that, you know, hey, I met you 15 years ago or whatever. I don't want to let you know that you made an impact on my life. It's like, oh no, you made an impact on mine. I remember you, stuff like that. So yeah, it was always important to me.
That is super cool. I won't keep you too much longer. I want to, you know, thank you for being open with kind of like your mental health journey. I think it's really important. And my hope is that that's another way to touch somebody else or help.
Yeah. I just hope I didn't ramble too much.
No, okay. Not at all. I think it's like, I think it's super important. One of the things I kind of want to bring it back to just really quickly was, you said you had this like kind of panic attack that happened. Mm-hmm. And just what do you think that was about?
It was kind of like, it was a different version of when I walked off the stage that last time at Coalesce and just packed my equipment up. It was just, I felt like I was trapped this time. Like that time I knew it was over just because like I saw the destruction that was there.
Yeah.
But I guess in my head, there was no amount of destruction that could happen by the next day that would stop the tour that was moving forward.
Yeah.
So this, like, it just became so tense that I started to panic, and I felt like I was going to lose myself if I stayed. Like I could not stay. I don't think I would have recovered had I stayed on for the remaining 3 or 4 days or whatever that trip. I don't think I would have recovered. I don't think I would have been all right.
Yeah.
I think by the end of it, I would have been a mess.
I think
I'm scared I wouldn't come back.
The concept of just bringing it back to like a mental health perspective, just the concept of being stuck somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And like the body kind of doing what it needs to do to try and keep you safe, mm-hmm. even though it's one of the worst, most awful feelings. Like mm-hmm. what is so difficult about anxiety and panic for people, and even for myself, is this idea that your body is trying to keep you safe, but also making you feel like the worst thing in the world.
Oh, you know? Yeah.
And it feels almost like a betrayal of your own body that you just mm-hmm. don't get to like control that anymore. Yep. And that concept of, like you said, of being stuck. When I did talk with Jake, one of the things that he mentioned was why he stopped doing Myas the Bear was because it came to a point, kind of the same thing for you, where he was like, I would get physically ill before a tour, like with anxiety, like 2 days before I would leave. And he was like, it was the most awful thing. And he was kind of talking about how some of that anxiety did not go away once he stopped and that's when he became diagnosed with bipolar and everything else. But the concept, I think, of him missing his family too, and seeing, and just being so physically torn up inside, is I don't know. And the way people experience anxiety is either mentally, physically, or both. And and for
me, when I was dealing with that too, like I would just start drinking heavily.
Yeah.
Because if I couldn't fix it medically, I would
Sure.
fix it some way.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was a couple of trips I don't remember playing. Like I would get off the stage and not remember playing the entire set. Like I drank so much that I just didn't know I'd even played a set. And people were
Yeah.
shocked. They was like, "How did you do that?" I was like, "I could barely stand up," and then somehow I made it through the entire set. And they was like, "You played great. How did you do that?" And I was like, "I don't remember."
Yeah. Yeah.
It just did it. Just
Yeah.
autopilot, and then the hands did what the brain told them to, and everything else is turned off. And I was just
Yeah.
like,
It's an autopilot. Yeah. Again, survival, right? Like you need to do what you kind of need to do.
yeah,
And it's interesting the interplay of anxiety and alcohol as well. And a lot of people will self-medicate, right? Because it's a weird juxtaposition because Damon Atkinson, the drummer for Braid and Hey Mercedes and whatnot, we were talking about him going through sobriety and when he decided to get into rehab, he's like, I had a massive panic attack for like 6 hours straight. And people try and suppress with the alcohol, suppress their GABA receptors, which are the things that are like help keep you sort of regulated. And once the alcohol wears off, like those receptors start overproducing. And that creates panic and anxiety. That's why people like, have you ever heard of like anxiety, like a hangover anxiety, type of thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's our bodies, our minds are super weird in so many different ways. I'm curious, like in all of this, did you end up, with your with bipolar? Did you end up going to see therapists, or did you end up?
I spent about a year and a half with a therapist.
Yeah.
And she's the one that sent me to the doctor that diagnosed me with the bipolar disorder and then started medicating. And then that's the last time I've been to a therapist. I've had a few issues since then, like leaving Casket Lottery, and since then I've had a few moments where my wife has asked if I needed to kind of seek help again, where I would start struggling. So,
and what was it like for you actually to seek that help? Was that like a pride swallow? Like, what was that like for you to finally have to be like?
I think at first it was a pride swallowing thing for sure.
Yeah.
Just because, like I said, my family didn't talk about it. It was something that wasn't talked about. It was like taboo. You're not mentally ill. You're just going through a moment, and type of thing. So for me to finally accept that there was something wrong and see somebody, that was like a huge moment for me.
Yeah.
And once I did it, it's just like, well, I'm okay now. I could talk to anybody about this. So it's like, if I need to seek help, I'll just go see somebody. There's no reason to be scared. They're not there to hurt me.
Right.
Hopefully they'll guide me in the direction I need to go.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, thank you again so much. There's a million things, Stacey. I could be on here for like 5 hours talking with you. There's so much like stuff, but I gotta, try and be mindful of everybody's time. I think like as a last question for you is, man, this is a really generalized question. I think I got to think of a different question. Actually, this is a question like that to ask people. What is a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self? Maybe like in your mid-20s or early 20s.
Well, I guess not given to fear as much as I did. Like, if I could tell my 20-year-old self now, is like, your life is going to be great. Go ahead and take more risk. I was still kind of risk averse, just because like there were so many opportunities. I feel that things could have went differently for both the Casket Lottery, Coalesce, but like I couldn't get out of my own way. So I think if I could go back and talk to myself, I'd say, get out of your own way. Things are going to work out. I wish that my older self would go back and say, hey, these things are going to be great for you. Yes, you should explore that. Like the kind of things when I don't explore it, and I always regret having not went down that path. I wish my older self was like, yes, you should definitely explore that because this is where it's going to lead you, type of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Really awesome. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate
no
it. Stacy,
man.
you are a legend in the scene. So
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
That does it for our episode. I'm your host, Jeremy Hausma, licensed mental health therapist. I'd like to thank Stacy Hilt for coming on again and being candid, vulnerable, and insightful. If you're listening and you or someone you know is struggling with their mental health, please know that you matter. Please reach out to the National Mental Health Crisis Hotline at 988. You'll be able to speak with someone who can help. Stay tuned for all new episodes coming up.